And pledge.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you're seated tonight, I would ask you to join me in a moment of silence for three phenomenal folks that work for Hendry County School District. The first is Ms. Kathleen Crosby. She worked for Hendry County Schools from August of 1998 through June 2017 as a teacher at Westside Elementary. Ms. Crosby passed away April 15th. The second is Ms. Nancy Shackelford. She worked for Hendry County School District from August 1983 till June of 2009 as an ESC specialist. Ms. Shackelford passed away April 23rd. And the last is Ms. Mavis Wilson, worked for Hendry County School Districts from October of 1969 through May of 2005 as a paraprofessional at LaBelle Elementary. And Ms. Wilson passed on May 20th. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Superintendent, I see that we have some recognitions this evening.
We do have some recognitions. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not sure that all of the folks are here this evening. Ms. Small, I don't believe I see Ms. Small. Ms. Small was a bus driver for 38 years for Hendry County Schools. And I was told that she missed very few to no days in those 38 years. Just a positive individual that always brought a lot of good energy and a lot of good aura to the bus compound. And we know that she's going to be sorely missed, but we wish her well in retirement as well. The second is Michael Stevens. Is Mr. Stevens present? I didn't think I seen Mr. Stevens either. Mr. Stevens was a custodian that had 36 years of service to our district. And folks, you may not, I've said it several times. You think about schools being teachers and principals and folks like that, but try it without the bus drivers, try it without the custodians for a really short period of time, and you'll see, that it takes everyone to run these schools. And we're eternally grateful for those folks that spent all these years driving buses and doing the things around schools that make them what they are for everyone. And the last recognition that we have, I'm actually going to allow Mr. Lukenhaus to come up and spread some lights.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have a Kleenex? I'd like to ask Mr. Stephen Riggs, his wife Cagney, McKinley, and Delilah if they'll come up here for a minute. I want to take this opportunity to recognize Stephen Riggs. Stephen has been our outstanding welding instructor the last 4 years. Have very mixed emotions. I'm happy for him. I had no idea how young he was. And then I realized that, young people want to try different things, and he's going to do so well wherever he ends up. He has set the bar very, very high for our welding school, and we are surely going to miss you. I believe everybody's replaceable, but I think this is going to be a tough one to replace. So I do want to, on behalf of Workforce Development, I do want to present this card to you. And I think Mr. Swindle has probably a couple words he wants to say. And since he's the fellow that brought him into the district, so.
Well, actually, my history with Mr. Riggs goes back to high school days. And so I had the opportunity to teach him in high school as well as his wife. So I've been around both of them since they were very young, and been very honored to know them and watch them grow and mature. I'm always amazed by folks that bring their time, skills, talents, and treasures and share with other people, and how they influence. And so knowing Stephen as I did, I had my reservations about, he's a good welder, but how's he going to be as a teacher? In a very short period of time, I've never seen the weld shop that clean, that organized, with a system of folks that come in, they worked hard, they learned to weld. I should have asked over the period of time he was here the number of certificates that was earned in the shop. I'm sure you don't know off the top of his head, do you?
4 years.
Well, maybe he does know. How old would it be?
4 years, I don't know.
Okay, right.
This past school year, 38.
38 welding certificates earned, and that stands for a lot. I mean, so him doing that, that's 38 individuals, you know, that can go today and earn a high skill, high wage job anywhere, worldwide, America, you name it. And so that means a lot. And so we're super proud that these are products of Hendry County schools, giving back to Hendry County schools and the systems, and now the community. And so I couldn't be proud of the work that he's done. And if I can open this up, we have a certificate of recognition of Mr. Stephen Lee Riggs, welding instructor for workforce development, in sincere appreciation and gratitude for the 4 years of dedicated service. Your wisdom, commitment to excellence have inspired many and will be remembered for years to come. We wish you good health, happiness, and continued success in your retirement. And what I would like to do is give it to a couple of the cutest little boogers I've ever seen.
Now, before we go, the other day, the two girls came into my office real quick, and I gave them a scratch-off ticket just for fun. I don't know if this is kosher or whatever. We had so much fun scratching those tickets. Here you go. I don't know if I should give these to Dad or Mom, or have a good time with
Superintendent, do we have any presentations tonight?
We do have actually 3 presentations, and so the first one, I'm going to ask Miss Lynette White to come forward and make the introductions and get us started.
It's not me, I promise. I'm not going to talk a lot. We invited a couple individuals and some of our students who have transitioned into workforce today to talk to you, to talk about this partnership that we have with Gulfstream Goodwill. And so I'm going to ask Mr. Joseph Bowe to come up. He's going to present a short presentation to you all about what great work they're doing and partnering with us to help our students who have exceptionalities succeed in a career. And then at the end, I do have some recognition I would like to do. And Ms. Lutenhouse is going to assist. Okay? Yeah. This is what you're doing right there. Okay, ready? And go. There we go.
Hey, good evening. My name is Joseph Bowe. I'm the project manager at Gulfstream Goodwill Industries. We have been working in South Florida, based out of West Palm Beach, for 54 years, doing nonprofit work. You can see we have our stores, but some of our major things that we really like, we have working with the homeless, working with folks that are coming out of jails that are coming back into the workforce, working with our good grub and our print shops and all that good stuff. Our core belief as Gulfstream Goodwill is work is good for everyone, and we believe in hands up, not hands out. Our stores are only a small portion of our operations. Our highlights are Good Grub, where we have a group that has a professional kitchen over there. We have a food truck, and they go out and do catering and things of that nature. We also remove through our stores, as well as selling to other thrift stores. We keep 172 million pounds of clothing out of the landfills where it would end up during other times. The crown jewel of the Gulfstream Goodwill organization at this time, though, is the Okeechobee Waterways that we're here to talk about tonight. We We have been working with the United States Army Corps of Engineers now for 15 years. This is a set-aside contract. I have been blessed to be here for 13 years now. We mow and provide janitorial services to over 5,000 acres. And this is the entire levee, the entire Okeechobee waterway from Fort Myers to St. Lucie, clear down to the Miccosukee Indian Reservation on 41, all of those water structures. We provide this, we take care of every bit of that. Our wages are far higher than the average. And those wages are set to go up, matching Florida's increasing minimum wage, so that there is not a wage depression for our current folks. So as that Florida wage goes up, their wage is going to go up in comparison. We're providing careers, not jobs. I don't want folks that want to come and just work for me for a little bit. I want folks that want to come and learn. We have folks right now that are operating those big tractors that started as janitors. We have created stair steps from every position from janitor to project manager. We're doing things that no one else in the world is doing with folks that are special. There's none of this happening anywhere else in the world. It is the only place it's happening. And before you know this, I just have to say on our own behalf, we're keeping these folks safe. We currently have the standing record, Army Corps of Engineers Jacksonville record, over 3.5 years running without a lost hour incident for anybody on this team with the work we do. So regardless of who they are, what they are great folks. This began a few years ago because I was looking for help. I needed folks. My wife, Shannon Bowe, she actually works in the ESE department, and obviously things come up, and we were talking, hey, is there that opportunity? I was able then to get with Miss Lynette and Miss Beth and tell them about this, what we have going on. And took a little bit of time to get it rolling on both ends, but it has been rolling now for over a year. And we have successes that are here to meet you tonight.
So I'm gonna let Beth
Our
talk about
partnership
how it works.
developed because Dr. Staley brought Mr. Bowe in to
Yes.
speak with all of the ESE specialists, and of course he came, and then, as I said, it took us a while to get going, but then I asked if he could come and speak with the personnel at Lewiston High School. Well, I think if you just look in the back, you'll see the support from Lewiston High School. Every one of their admin are here. The two teachers, Ms. Crespo and Ms. Shannon, that do a lot of this work are here because their kids are here. I love working at Lewiston High School. They have the buy-in. They support me. They allow me to be able to do these kind of things. And of course, Mrs. White and her staff that allow us ESE specialists to go above and beyond to work on transition, where our meetings are all about graduation and transition. That's where they want us focused and to work at the secondary level as ESE specialists. So thank you, Lewiston High School.
And Joe, can you talk a little bit too about the percentage of students with disabilities that you have working
Yes.
in this system so that they get the
My contract requires that we have 75% participation. We are running at 89%. Of my current staff, these gentlemen here and one other who could make it is over 10% of my current staff. So we have created through this partnership, I've been totally blessed with these great folks to work with, that we're creating careers that are working for folks here around the lake that are it's going to build forever. This is going to be after Joe's gone, after we're all gone. This contract's here forever. This is going to be, these folks are going to be running it one day. And I think that one day
We can't wait to get to that
the
part.
way he's shooting, he'll be in my position before I know it.
So look, how this works is that when Mr. Bowe has an opening, he calls me and tells me what the opening is. I get a hold of Mrs. Shanahan or Mrs. Crespo. They know their kids a lot better than I do, and boy, do they know them. They know everything about them, they love them, and they know what students will fit with what job skills. They send the students down to me, and then the students and I talk about it. If they like it, we call their parents and we get their parents involved. If it's a go, the student and I build a resume, and then we do an online application, send it to Mr. Bowe. Mr. Bowe then gets that, he calls me and says, I want to interview. Mr. Bowe comes to Clewiston High School, interviews our students after we practice a little bit, and then he does the interview. He's even brought Levi, one of our students, back to do interviews with him when he's come to Clewiston High School with Mr. Griner. So after they do that, they interview. If they want to hire them, Mr. Bowe calls me, we let them know, and then we get all the paperwork going, Mr. Bowe and his staff. Mr. Bowe is wonderful with our unique learners. He knows exactly how to work with them and exactly how to respect them and interview, and our kids do great in those interviews. After they're hired, then at Clewiston High School we plan a little celebration, and because, as Mr. Bowe said, this is not just a job. This is a career, perhaps a lifetime career with a good hourly wage, benefits, and that's hard to get nowadays. So I'm super duper proud. So anything else about the process that I forgot?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, let's get to the good stuff. So,
Oh, yes, but you can introduce them. No, that was
sorry. All right, so we're going to have the students come up individually.
Yes.
Levi,
Levi was the first young man to ever come work for us, and he's been with us over a year now, and he has far exceeded anything that I could have ever imagined. He is beyond training, where we expected him to be. Anything that we ask on the finished teams he can do. He's working with the tractor teams, and he's actually going to be working with the welding, beginning welding with mechanics this summer, because he's done that in his own time. So why don't you tell him a little bit about it?
you can watch it.
I've been here since for a year and a half. I love it. Everybody treat us nice. You know, it can get a little wild out there. Yeah, that's something coming. My welding, I had started that a couple of months, maybe a couple of months. I had passed that, finished that, graduated from there. Now I'm going up to my CDL this year. I'm just waiting on for that. And I love it. I love you.
Garris?
Garrett has been with us the second longest. He is able to pretty much run everything on our landscaping teams, and he has begun operating the smaller mowers, which is about a 50 horsepower tractor, open cab, and we start him with that and then move him up to the larger ones. So he is right on pace to be right behind Levi. So he's nipping at your heels. Just saying.
Do you want to say anything, Garris?
So, it's gonna be hard, though.
You say what you like most maybe about it.
Well, I like new people, bro. So I love Joe. Joe, he was like a great friend. And I like to meet new people and work with others and do good things.
Thank you.
I learned a lot of parts of for the magazine. It was cool. I love it.
I only been working here for 7 or 8 months. But I like it. I was staying in the job for my whole life, probably. Yeah, let's go.
Everybody wants to be the tractor guy.
Harris actually walked to work one day.
Yes,
He couldn't
ma'am.
get to work, so he left his house a half hour earlier and walked all the way to Mr. Bowe's office. And I thought that was pretty remarkable. Plus, he was going to school while he was working. He didn't have all of his graduation credits. So this is Crespo. He could come on Fridays, and he would go to her room, and he got all of his credit, worked Monday through Thursday, and came back to school on Friday to make sure he earned all of his credits.
Samuel.
Yeah.
Samuel is our newest recruit. He's been with us about a month now. He just graduated with this year's graduating class from Clewiston High and immediately came to work with us. He is progressing right along, doing really well. And I can tell you that the rest of the group really likes the work you're doing already. So, is there anything you want to say, or you good? Okay, please.
Good man.
Well,
Just tell him what you like the most. You like the most.
I really love meeting new people because I graduated high school class of 23. I'm very proud, and I just want to meet new people, make marriage with them. I really love the job so much. I work hard.
He works very hard. You're doing great, Sam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Sam.
As you can see, they're doing great work, and they have a great relationship with Mr. Bowe and the whole team at Gulfstream. And I don't know if you guys want to add anything, admin, if you have anything you want to say. I appreciate you guys coming tonight. If you want to say a word, Ms. Frantha, I don't know, I see it on your face. We got to make it snappy.
The one thing I want to say first and foremost is how proud we are of these three young men right here. And without these two, these guys wouldn't be where they're at. And Mr. Bowe, one thing I can tell you is that we're all very protective of our kids, and we know that when they're with you, that they're taken care of. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's something that was one of the hardest things to begin with, getting it started, because I know everybody's very protective of these young men, and
It's hard for the moms.
I am very protective of them too. So is Buddy. I can't have done it without Buddy or the rest of my team. So.
I'm going to bring Mr. Buddy up as well, if you come up for just a moment. I want to present each of you with a certificate of recognition. So come over here, we're going to get your picture, of course. If Mr. Swin will come up as well. And there you go, Buddy. Thank you so much, just for all the hard work for our students that have unique challenges, learning challenges. We appreciate it. Will you take a picture with my phone? Someone, anyone, or Beth? Thank you.
I can work this.
Me too.
Thank you both. We're going to get out of y'all's hair. We've been doing that since 6 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Bowe.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Superintendent, I see that one of our recognitions has arrived. Would you like to do that now? Yeah, great presentation.
Thank you all for your patience. I would like to back up in the agenda, please, all the way back out of 1D. It appears that Ms. Small is here now. Can you come up, Ms. Small? You don't want to come back there? I can move chairs. Is the rest of the small family? They love it? Okay, I thought so. Just wanted to be sure. So I'm sorry to have to bring you up here, but 38 years of service to Hendry County Schools in a bus is worth time for us to stop and bring you up front. So it is unbelievable today that we have folks that's been with us 38 years, and we're so proud of the work that you've done, getting kids to school and back home safely with love and a smile on your face. And a lot of people don't realize that. When these babies get on the bus in the morning, the first person they see a lot of times is the smile and loving face. And then the last one they see before the next day is that smile and loving face of that bus driver. And so I have a deep love and appreciation for bus drivers. And I know that 38 years is a long time, but I thank God that He left you with us and allowed you to be that person that those babies seen for 38 years getting on and off the bus. I spoke to Ms. Timgren earlier today, and I said, what would you say? And she said, there was no one better about lighting up the room and being positive than Ms. Small. And she said something remarkable about never missed a day of work. Is that right? And that says a lot. And so we are so grateful and so appreciative for the work that you've done and the lives that you've touched and the service that you've given to Hendry County Schools. So we have two things for you. The first one is a certificate of recognition to Ms. Offreen Small, Clewiston bus driver, in sincere appreciation and gratitude for your dedicated service. Your wisdom, commitment to excellence have inspired many and will be remembered for years to come. We wish you good health, happiness, and continued lots of happiness in your retirement. And we have a nice little gift card for you to be able to maybe buy something of your own that you would like as well. So, hope all the family can see. Thank you very much. We want to present that to you. And thank you for everything that you did.
Okay, have a good time.
Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, board, for allowing us to backtrack and do that, but that was important that we stop and recognize that family.
38 years.
38 years. Mr. Adams, are you ready to come up and get started? We can go now. Our next presentation this evening, Mr. Adams is going to be presenting on our rebranding efforts that we have done and rolling out the new rebranding seal. So give him just a minute to get set up there, and we're going to let him go through the process and what it looked like, and you guys will get to be the first to see the new rebranding logo and seal that will be used for Hendry County Schools.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My pleasure to be here and to present this information to you. I truly believe that we live and participate and educate students in an incredible community. And part of the purpose of this is that Hendry County continues to grow, and we would like to represent that growth and change and our dedication to the excellence in education that we provide. So, as you can see here, we have Hendry County growing and diverse community that is dedicated to excellence in education. So this brings up a very important question. So what is a brand? A brand represents the core of an organization. It's an expression of values, unique organizational culture and or character, and or a corporate promise. It's based heavily on the opinions of others, how they view, think, and or feel about our organization. So an example of that is that it goes all the way back to ranchers branding cattle for the differentiation to indicate the kind, the grade, the make. It's the exact same concept for businesses, products, or services. So the goal throughout this entire process was to create a district logo that represents our community, that relates to education, that assists us in recruiting and marketing, highlights iconic features of the geographic location, and also has a cross-functional, multi-application color scheme. And in order to create this, we went through a process, and that process was that the very first thing that we did was we contracted with Pushing the Envelope. That is the same marketing company that led our Half Cent initiative. And they also led the input collection and the design of the new logo, which I'm about to present to you tonight. Part of that input collection was that we published 2 community surveys for input. We hosted a student art contest, and the final logo design was selected by the community. So the survey 1 consisted primarily of stakeholder input. It was available for 2 weeks. It allowed stakeholders to provide input on the initial creation of the logo design. It included questions that guided the respondents to describe Hendry County through descriptive imagery and color choice that represents the county and the school district. Here are the survey results from the first survey. As you can see, we had the top 5 colors, and we also had the top 5 words or phrases. Some of the colors that were initially selected through this survey, what we wanted to do was stay kind of school neutral, right? We didn't want to have a district logo that was red or blue like Closton, right? We didn't want to show favoritism or bias towards any school that we have in the district. Some of the key words, we see that growing was the #1 choice, community, diverse. Unfortunately, we have outdated there, but it was part of the system, and we are actively updating and moving forward. And I think that we all know that, especially with the addition of the new high school, et cetera. And then excellence in education. And that's where I came up with that first phrase for that first slide. A growing, diverse community that's dedicated to excellence in education. So, based off of all of that information, Pushing the Envelope marketing company came up with 2 logo designs. We put those 2 logo designs out in black and white. And then the reason why we did that was with their guidance to remove color bias from the selection. So a lot of times if you put out a logo and it may have blue or green, and that's somebody's favorite color, then they're going to select that logo. So they were initially put out for vote in black and white to remove color bias. And it gives a little description of the design and the elements in the vote itself. And you can see that 70% of the almost 1,000 votes selected for logo 2. And this design aligns with the Hendry County School District and the government entities as far as like its representation of a sill. The design shows an oak tree for growth. It has agricultural rows and a child with a book to represent students and education. And this is the final element, the final product. So you have the logo on the left and then the associated color scheme on the right.
I like it.
I'm glad to hear that.
No.
I do too. Who's that sitting on the tree?
Little playground.
Okay. Yeah. Tree.
Does anybody have any questions about flow process?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Adams, so when I was looking through our bills, we paid $7,000 for this project, correct?
I believe that was part, I do not know the total, no.
And that it indicated it came from general funds. My question going forward is, I also read in the Calusa Bell online today, an article announcing the chosen logo, and it mentioned where you were going to find this logo going forward, signage, and I wanted to know if we had an idea of the estimated cost to implement the changes that were listed in the Calusa Bell article.
I do not have that information.
But that is correct. I mean, everything from, you know, stuff like that, letterheads, logos on jacket, shirts, you know, and things as we go forward, we switched over to this. No, I don't know if we're gonna do it all at one time. I don't anticipate that. We'll do it as we get to them, or we need more paper, or we need more things done. We're not gonna just throw away stuff and then start over. We made the big obvious things like these in the boardrooms. So it's not gonna be a giant $100,000 lift or anything like that.
A lot of the changes are at zero cost, so especially the digital format.
Oh yeah, I mean, I see that, but I was thinking about like, I know that we have like signage on vehicles, and then, you know, thinking about, totally forgot about that sign, but I didn't know like signage that would be outside the district office, stuff like that, if we had like an anticipated, what it would cost to implement the plan.
Yeah. No, and again, we're not looking to go out today and this week and tear them all down and put up new ones, but we will slowly go through there and put new signs up, especially with the new schools and things like that, and the new relocations and things. That'll give us the opportunity to do those.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Do we need an action on this?
No, sir. No, that was done in the operations side of the house. I would appreciate tonight also if the board would allow us latitude. Not that we're not looking for a vote or any action tonight, but I've asked Ms. Cox to bring a presentation to you to just kind of give you a shot over the battle where we are financially at this point in time, so that you can have some heads up before we get in, especially to tonight's business and especially tonight's executive session that we're going to hold as well. We wanted to make sure that you had some overview of the budgetary situation, and if you have any questions, this is not a deep dive into it. This is a kind of an informative, here's where we are, the state of the state with regard to budgeting Hendry County schools at this point in time. I don't know how many of you followed through the state legislative process. They did change some of how the state FEFP is calculated, and that did have some impact to us here in Hendry. And so Ms. Cox has been wading through those changes and what it means to us financially and budgetarily, and so she's going to present that. I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. It was positive. Wound up being positive. We held our breath through the whole process, worried about it, but at the end of the day, it was very positive. We were scared too.
Mr. Adams, I really like it there. I love the colors.
Perfect.
All right, well, good evening, board members, superintendent. I'm so glad you could squeeze me in tonight. You know, I love talking about the budget. I'm really excited to talk about the budget tonight because we really can't came out on the fortunate side of things for the legislative session, so we'll jump right into it. You know, the bulk of our funding is based on our FTE, and I've shared this slide with you in past presentations. It didn't have so many lines, but you know, we have DAOF, we have the FES, the private school scholarships. There's so much now wrapped into our FTE, which flows through the FEFP, so I kind of wanted to show you where we've been with all of those individual student types, I guess you could say, and then where we're going. So you can see for the current year, 22-23, where we're at, our total FTE is that top yellow line at 13,572, and then where we're going for fiscal year 23 at 13,802.85, and then broken out by just traditional Hendry County Public Schools. We're projecting, this is a projected number, 7,378, and then we have DAOF right below that, and then the scholarships as well. And I do want to clarify, you know, we kind of use FTE and head count interchangeably. They're not necessarily the same thing, but the FTE is just the count through the Department of Education to base our funding on. So we're going to focus a lot on the FEFP because we got a lot going on this legislative session with it. A lot of great things came out of it when the session first started. It was like very sketchy. It was kind of a roller coaster because the House and the Senate were at odds and very different FEFP runs coming out. But when they came together, the first calculation of the conference report came out, we were very blessed. So to start off, the base student allocation increased $552, which is astronomical. We've never seen that type of increase, but it came with several categoricals being collapsed and lumped into the base student allocation, and they're listed there. Another big change was the district cost differential became the comparable wage factor. So the DCD was typically based on wages. It was kind of like an index used to measure districts against each other. If you were average, you could say you were 1. If you were less than 1, which Hendry County was below 1 many, many years, you would say you're kind of below the average. There are a lot of districts above it. But the DCD went away and they renamed it to comparable wage factor. And every district got reset at 1. So that in itself was going to be a huge win for us because this current year we're at 0.8923. So to get to 1, and I'll kind of talk about how that impacts our funding in another slide. But that was a huge win for us. The teacher salary increase allocation for an additional $1.1 million. So that's a great thing for our teachers. And a lot of the strings came off of that. There was a lot of very conflicting language about if you adjust your minimum base this, you got to get grandfathered that, it has to be 75% of this. Like, it was very complex language that was stricken out, and we're very excited for that because it gives us flexibility to divvy that money up between all teachers. We don't just have to focus on the minimum base. And then SAI, the Supplemental Academic Instruction Allocation, was renamed to Educational Enrichment, and we saw a significant increase in that as well. And then the property tax increase has 15.76% built into the FEFP, which is huge. And just another huge property tax increase, which I'm sure we all saw coming given the housing market. We actually just got the preliminary taxable value from the property appraiser as well, and it came in more at over 18%. So just another win there. And then this next point is huge because we never really see this in the FEFPs. The state set aside $350 million in the back of the General Appropriations Act for growth that maybe they didn't account for, particularly in the FES scholarships, with the universal choice coming into play this year. In case they got those projections wrong, they didn't want districts to be hurt, because when they don't project enough students, we have a proration, districts lose money. So they built that set aside in the back of the budget, which is great in case they were wrong about those projections. So the base student allocation, this is breaking down those categoricals that were repealed and then lumped into the base student allocation, that additional $552 that we got. So when we look at our allocation in the current year, FEFP, you can see that column totaling $3.2 million, or that broke down to $442 per FTE. But the increase was $552, so you can see we really got another win there of $110 per FTE. And this is excluding DAOF. I'm giving you numbers without Digital Academy of Florida, just so you can see the true impact to Hendry County brick and mortar schools. So the DCD becoming comparable wage factor, where I mean this was a huge win is that the Department of Education had calculated our comparable wage factor for next year at 0.9635. Less than where we're at this year. This would have been like devastating, to be honest. I mean, because it takes the base student allocation of $5,139, you times it by 0.9635, you get $4,952. Or really, we would be losing $187.60 per FTE if we would have stuck with the DCE. So thankfully, everybody got moved to one, but then because they repealed sparsity as well, they moved those districts who are in a fiscally constrained county, and there's about 20 of us, and you have to have less than 20,000 students, you got to an adjusted comparable wage factor of 1.0277.
What do you mean physically restrained?
Fiscally constrained, it just, it's kind of like the makeup of the county, like just based on the rural, the income of the county.
Financially
It's determined by the Department of Revenue.
We get more money or more consideration?
Yes, we are getting more money because we are in a fiscally constrained county.
Okay.
Yes. Not next year. We're definitely not that. So that was just a huge win because you can kind of see the calculation below. If we would have stuck to that old methodology, the BSA would have been the $4,952, but we would have gotten sparsity to help make up for that, right? So our base funding per student would have been the $5,238, but we're actually above that, right? We're now at $5,282 thanks to that repeal of the DCD, getting that adjustable comparable wage factor, which generated an additional $43.78 per student, or $322,000. So this was just Hendry County brick and mortar. So if we recap the FEFP increases, I mean, these were just things above and beyond what we were anticipating. These were just major wins that we got out of the legislative session and the changes to the FEFP. I won't run down them all, but you can see ultimately, just for Hendry brick and mortar, an increase of $4.1 million in the FEFP, which is huge. I don't know that we've ever seen that kind of increase, even giving the repeal of categoricals and lumping them, like, we could not have asked for a better session. And this doesn't even include some of the other revenue increases that we're seeing in the general fund, such as interest rate or interest income, because interest rates are sky high. The interest income that we're earning off of our bank accounts is just astronomically high right now as well. Indirect cost revenues from all the ESSER grants. So, those things are not recurring. But we've been very fortunate. We're in prosperous times. Who knows how long that's going to last. And we've just been very fortunate. So we'll talk about the property tax. Here's a little graph of just kind of where it's been historically since 2011. You see the 15.76% increase that was built into the FEFP. As of the first run, when we get the second calculation in July, we'll see the certified property taxable value come into play, and that's where we'll see it more north of 18 or so percent. But that generated an additional $422,000 for us with what was given in the FEFP calculation at this point. So we'll expect at least, $65,000 or so more given the additional increase that we're expecting from there. So the general fund ending unassigned fund balance, this is just kind of another historical view, and then where we're projecting to end for fiscal year 23. This is, again, does not include DAOF. So if we were to include DAOF, we will see it a little bit higher than that because, we don't pay them 100% of their funding. But we're at a very healthy situation. Just from the growth that we saw this year, we saw an additional $1.1 million in the FEFP in April when we got the fourth calculation. So that's kind of built into that projected fund balance. We didn't really invest it in anything since we got it kind of late in the year. But you can see we're at a very healthy point, and if we were to even take into account our restricted and other fund balances, we're going to be north of $20 million when you look at all of those things. So we're in a very healthy situation, not just because of the windfalls of money that we've been fortunate to get from the state and just the prosperous economy, but really because we've been educating people about their budgets. You know, we're paying for things from the proper funding sources. People are learning about what pots of money to pay from. They're becoming more aware, cost saving. We've done a lot of work trying to get to that point. I think it's paying off. People are understanding their budgets, and our budget truly reflects that. So why do we have a reserve or fund balance? Well, it's required by state, 3% minimum. And then the board requires 6% of new revenue, less Digital Academy of Florida. But most importantly, we have to set aside even more than 6% for any unanticipated expenses or revenue shortfalls. You know, like we're projecting our FTE about 7,400 next year. If all those kids don't show up, we could lose money. There could be prior year adjustments, proration, just things that naturally occur throughout the year that we would need to be prepared for, and we are well more than prepared for what could come given our fund balance. And it is a very early estimation as well, since we're really not final with the fiscal year 23. So because DAOF makes up such a large portion of our budget, I wanted to share this with you to kind of see how they were making up as far as FTE and the total FEFP budget. So the gray is Hendry County plus FES, and the green is DAOF. So you can kind of see they're 43% of our FTE and making up 33% of our FEFP budget. And given the increases that they've also seen from the FEFP changes, it'll generate almost $76,000 additional administrative fee that we receive from them. So just to briefly touch on capital, we're working on the 5-year capital plans, which will go through the year 2028. You will see in the tentative budget a capital plan, like our capital millage, property tax money plan, and then you will also see a sales tax plan, which will be new for this year, given that that started in January. But given the 16% that we had at the time I prepared this presentation, you know, we know the property tax is going to generate at least $847,000 more in our capital millage, and then we're anticipating the sales tax budget next year at almost $2.4 million. I also wanted to just include some information about all of our COVID money. We have we call this CRSA, wrapping up this year. So I didn't provide a slide on CARES because that's all done and gone away. These are our current active grants with CRSA. You can kind of see when we've been awarded, the budget period. The bold project names are ones that have positions funded from them. But you can see the total budget, what we have spent and encumbered to date. This was as of June 4th. What we have remaining and the percent we have spent in totality. You can see 89% for CRSA, and a majority of this is ending in September. And we have a massive summer program running that will more than eat all this money away, so we do not have to return a dime to DOE. Yay! And then here's the American Rescue Plan, or what we refer to as ARP. Same situation. You can see all the information about these. These run through, a majority of them run through September of 2024, and we have quite a few of these going on at this time with a total spend of 44%. So our next steps in timeline, we're going to continue to build the fiscal year 2024 budget to give you a tentative budget in July. We have our tentative hearing on July 31st. And then we'll have our final budget hearing on September 5th. Do you all have any questions? No?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Where does our FTE rank among the other districts of the state? Have you got that comparison yet?
The funds per FTE? Is that what you're asking about? Yes. I'm sorry, my notes didn't pull up on my slide, so I know I had it in one of these. So sorry, let me look through this. Yes, so if you look at the first calc of the FEFP, we are ranked the lowest at like $7,789. And that's just naturally due to DAOF diluting our funds per FTE, right? Because they don't generate money in safe schools, the new SAI allocation. They don't get our property tax money, but they look at that pot in totality and just divide it by all the entire FTE. So it dilutes that number. When we back them out and we truly just look at Hendry County brick and mortar, even excluding FES, we are really at $9,257 per FTE, which would rank us about 16th in the state.
So that would be our true ranking if, without that dilution, the numerical dilution there, right? So it's hard to, I mean, you can look at that numerically and think that will last, but truly we are nowhere near last.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. So the DAOF is a contract that we have. Is there any, 2 years ago, we were talking about it was such a problem. But now, is there any chance that somebody else may bid on that contract and we would lose it because now we're getting a lot of funding from them? Do you see that as a possibility?
I don't. The last renewal that we had, the Amendment 3 that came forward to the board, it was a couple of months ago. It renewed the contract for 10 years.
Oh, okay, great.
So we'll have them at least through 2034, I believe, was that 10-year mark.
Great. Then the other question is, a lot of people were hired on their position, like MTSS people, were all hired on the ESSER money. Your contract is good for 3 years. This is 1 year funding. Are we looking at losing those people? Are we redirecting them? I've had people ask me this question, employees say, well, what am I going to do? My money, they told me 3 years ago my money would be up when this year is over. Do we have a vision for that?
We do. You know, we've been meeting internally about ESSER sustainability. Like we had a lot of paras and custodians funded from there as well. And as those people have moved into other positions or resigned, we've just done away with those positions. So most of those are done away with. The MTS is a big piece that we are wanting to sustain, so we will find a way to sustain that somehow. And if we can't sustain all of it, you know, we always have a lot of vacancies that they can be absorbed in as well. So we don't plan on, you know, letting anybody go or lose their job.
Yeah. We've got more vacancies than we do folks, and so
Yeah.
as these MTSS funded, as the ESSER or any that aren't funded positions in, we are currently migrating them into permanent positions.
I just thought that MTSS position was a solid position. It's provided a lot of services, and particularly probably in all the schools. I see more of it in the elementary schools where they're working right with the students. So hopefully that money can maintain that programming. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would like to request, can we have that email to the?
Yes, because we kind of put this on late. Amy does have a copy, and she'll be sure to attach it.
Perfect.
So that it's out there for you all.
And mind you, board, that this is preliminary overview of the budget. The budget is nowhere near finished. There's still a lot of data to come. There's a lot of data that we don't have yet. And so this is nowhere near the end. We just wanted to make sure that you had the glimpse of that, even looking at where we are today, that without the ending budget, without the rollover numbers, without the final numbers coming from the county with regard to the property tax valuations, we're already sitting at one of the strongest budget that Hendry County School District has ever seen. And so we're very proud of that. It's a culmination of a lot of things, FEFP, as Ms. Cox told you, as well as we spent a lot of time over the last 18 months dealing with our principals and talking with our directors, saying, you know, you've got a budget. You need to buy things you need to run your school and make sure the students and teachers have what they need. Don't buy things you don't need. And our principals and directors have bought into that to a large degree. And in the end, you know, over the last couple of decades, you would see in the month of May and June, principals had X amount of dollars and they would buy 9 pallets of paper and find somewhere to stick it and, you know, and just hide it out. You know, the principals have understood that they don't have to do that. And so they're returning budgets. And as a result, you know, we are a financially sound district, more so than we've ever been before. And so we're very proud of that. We wanted to share that with you tonight. And there are some strategic things coming up in the agenda tonight that we wanted you to have knowledge of this before we got that far. So thank you for allowing us to present that to you. Thank you, Ms. Cox.
Mr. Superintendent, do we have any citizen comment on agenda items?
I have none at this time.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items the board member would like moved to action items? Okay, seeing none.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I would like to move item O, the District K-12 Comprehensive Evidence-Based Reading Plans to an action item.
Okay, we're going to move consent item O to action item E now. Right?
You might have an old one. You got an old agenda?
There's an updated
Oh,
agenda.
I have whatever A.
You've got the printed one.
Here, take this one here. This should be it.
So
It'll be H.
O would become H. Okay. Thank you. No, this is still. It's all right, we'll look at this. Okay, well, we made that move. All right, so Mr. Superintendent, anything else? Is that it? Mr. Superintendent, do I have a recommendation on the consent agenda?
Recommend approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Reverend Brown and a second by Mrs. Houston. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, action items. Action item A, new personnel allocation request. Mr. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
I recommend approval of action item 5A, the new personnel allocation request as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Houston and a second by Mr. Sammerdike. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Action item B, administrative reappointments for the 2023-24 school year. Mr. Superintendent, do I have your recommendation?
Yes, my recommendation for action item 5B is to approve the administrative reappointments for the 2023-24 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Sammerdike and a second by Mr. Vasquin. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
When we look at the reappointment lists, if you have somebody who has resigned, how long does it take, like HR, to get it to the board packet? Well, let's say I resign today, how long does it take to hit the board packet?
It could be, I don't know, a week, by the time they get the PA.
Resigned, and it's still reflected in the person, or the administrative reappointments, as well as the personnel recommendations under the
Yeah.
consent agenda.
It'll probably be the next meeting then, because we'll be updating these through the summer, nearly every meeting
Okay.
as we get them.
All right, that concludes my question.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Action item C, administrative reappointment for the 2023 school year for Anthony
Yep.
Houston, where Ms. Houston will stay.
Yep. Madam Chairman of the Board, I recommend approval of action 5C of administrative reappointment for a 23-24 school year for Mr. Anthony Busson.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Vasquin and a second by Mr. Sammerdike. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries with Ms. Houston abstaining. Action item D, Workforce Development Advisory Committee. Mr. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
I recommend approval of the action item 5D, the Workforce Development Advisory Committee as presented as well.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sammerdike and a second by Reverend Brown. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I looked at the supporting documentation on this that was submitted. It still leaves like questions. Policy 9140. I mean, I feel like the intent of, and maybe I'm interpreting it differently than it is intended, but I feel like the intent of policy 40 is when these committees are created, we should know the anticipated length of time that the committee is going to be in service, and specifically what the tasks they are going to be taking on are going to be. As well as, like what's going to be reported back, and kind of like the timeline on what's going to be reported. I
thought that was in there. I believe it was in the original agenda request that it's just advisory only. They're not going to take on tasks. It's just going to be advisory only.
And for how long do we anticipate?
I
Because
don't-
it says to
There's
be.
no ending. The point of it is to be an ongoing with no ending. Now, the people may come and go over time, or as new people want to add on, but we actually it's required by state now that Mr. Lukenhouse and the Workforce Development has a local advisory board to help guide decisions and the needs and things like that, not take on tasks, spend money, create, anything. Only advisory with regard to programmatic needs of the district.
Okay, do we know, like in the structure and organization, how long the appointments are going to be?
I don't think they intend to be, there is no intent for them to be limited on time. So it's going to be up to the person for how long they want to serve in the business, or if their business changes and has different needs.
Okay, and questions about the application process. I have some personal experience with it, but I was wondering if that had been revised and if folks there was like a selection process, or if everybody who signed up was, or wanted to, was welcome, if it's like anybody required to provide a resume.
No, I don't think so. I think Mr. Luca now sent out to the local community, those businesses or folks that had interest to help drive some of the decisions and directions to come join, and that's what they did.
Okay, concludes my questions.
Have any further discussion on workforce development? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Action item D carries. Action item E, administrative reappointment for the 2023-24 school year for Timothy Pruitt. This is where Mr. Bascom will stay. Mr. Superintendent, on the recommendation.
Yes, I recommend your favorable consideration and approval of action item 5E, administrative reappointment for the 23-24 school year for Timothy Pruitt.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Bascom, or Ms. Busen, and a second by Mr. Simmerdike.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries with Mr. Bascom abstaining. Action item F, personnel recommendation. Mr. Brown's going to abstain from this vote. Mr. Superintendent, I have your recommendation.
Yes, I recommend your approval of action item 5F, the personal recommendation for Ms. Brown.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Beeson and a second by Mr. Bascom. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Action item F carries with Mr. Brown abstaining. Action item G, personnel recommendation with Mr. Bascom abstaining again. Mr. Superintendent, your recommendation.
Yes, I recommend your approval of action item 5G, the personal recommendation for Ms. Robin Basquin.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Houston and a second by Reverend Brown. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries with Mr. Bascom abstaining. All right, so now we're going to have action item H, and that is the district K-12 comprehensive evidence-based reading plan, CERT 2023-24. Mr. Superintendent, your recommendation.
Yes. Let me scroll back to it because I know I'm not going to do that right.
Mrs. Chapman.
Yep, Madam Chairman, I recommend your approval of the District K-12 Comprehensive Evidence-Based Reading Plan, CERP 2023-24, as presented.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Reverend Brown and a second by Mr. Basquin. Discussion?
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
So I was excited to see this. I think this is the first year that we've got this, received this. That's typically been something for the Department of Education to approve or disapprove. So my experience with literacy and with my own children has, my experience in this district really changed the personal and professional trajectory of my life, and forced me into a situation where I had, in order to save my own children, had to really dig deep and learn a lot of things about literacy. And so this is, where my comments are going to be coming from, because when I think about that experience, I think, I realize when you look at the data and the numbers that there's other children who are struggling with literacy proficiency. One of the things, and I've been very consistent on this, is my concern with just moving the needle And I've consistently questioned the effectiveness of the coaching model. And when I look at where the allocations are budgeted here, they're to literacy coaches, and I'm not knocking the intervention teachers, but we've been using this literacy coach model for a really long time, and I'm not seeing, and particularly since the person who was kind of leading that and coaching the coaches has resigned, I look at that and I question, can we continue to go forward? And when I look at our goals, where it's stated where we're at, and the goals of where we're going, I don't feel like the goals, to me, as a parent, as someone who just truly understands how crucial literacy is to a child's ability to be a functioning member of society. Because if you can't read proficiently, really, what are your workforce options out there? And when you look at people you look at the prison population, the majority of the prison population is functionally illiterate. And so when I'm looking at, the things that we're overlooking and that we're prioritizing literacy coaches for, which is like the scientifically researched and evidence-based supplemental instructional materials, summer reading camps for grade 3 students. And then I actually spoke about this, I don't know if it was the previous meeting or the one before, about professional development for instructional personnel and certified pre-K teachers to earn certifications. Because I just know how powerful, getting those tools and that knowledge in my hands was for my kids. And what I want for them and the success that they've been able to achieve, you want it for every single kid in your county. And I just, I look here when I've talked about the step up for students, they have the reading scholarships, and our school district could actually bring in another, for every kid, if we did, to link up with like summer reading camps or after school reading and literacy tutoring, you can get $500 a head per kid. And I just feel like that's so important. And, I offered up some resources from, the person with Orton Gillingham training, and to get these certifications. And I felt like it just fell upon unwilling to hear ears. And even like, family engagement, when we have kids who have literacy problems, a lot of times you're seeing, this is generational at this point, and you're seeing parents who have literacy problems too. And so, we have nothing budgeted there for family engagement activities. And then when I look at our goals and our goal for plan year coming up, and the highest, the highest percentile of students, like we're looking for at 46% reading out of 3 to 5. I just feel like, the goals have to be higher. There has to be just a sense of urgency. And I could go on and on as I look through this, but, just looking at how we're allocating those funds right there, just from personal experience, not just injecting an opinion, but from my own personal experience, I just don't, and institutional knowledge of what our outcomes have been before, I just don't think it's the best choice going forward. And that concludes my comments.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the District 12 Prevention Evidence-Based Reading Plan? Any opposed?
Nay.
We have 4 ayes and 1 nay, Ms. Houston. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Madam Attorney, do you have any updates or business for us this evening?
Thank you, Chair, members of the Board, Superintendent. No, there's no attorney's report.
Okay, moving on to board member business. Mr. Superintendent, permission to advertise RFP for legal services.
Yes, in your board package, you have the RFP for legal services. We pushed that out last week now, I guess. If you have any questions about it or additions or amendments, we're happy to discuss or go over those. If not, then we will advertise that tomorrow.
Questions, concerns?
I do have an opinion to interject, imagine that. I don't know if the board attorney should be serving as a sergeant at arms. I feel like that's essentially like meeting control, and that is chair discretion. I feel like an attorney should be there to like call legal balls and strikes, but not have to be the sergeant at arms, because like the chair is the person who runs the meeting. And so, I don't know how the other folks feel about that, but,
I would like a neutral party to assist myself as the chair and future chair with running meetings, because I think a neutral party would be beneficial.
so do we like want to find a consensus on that?
Well, to that point, last week when we sent this out and I asked for any edits or anything that wanted to be put in there, 3 of the 5 board members asked for that to be put in there in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So that was the version you see in there was edited based on the 3 comments that 3 of the 5 board members at this table said to add that to it.
Okay, which board members was that?
You can ask them to self-identify.
Okay, good to know. And so I do have some comments I want to make, further comments. And that was at the October 18th, 2022 meeting, the day that Superintendent Swindle walked on his resolution regarding me, and to the surprise of the board attorney, the comment was made that he had reason not to trust her and that he would be taking care of that after the election. And so I'm very concerned about those optics. But, I've seen this tactic used against First Bank before with the line of credit. And, I was hoping that this would be similar to how First Bank responded and just came along and, submitted another RFP until we received the notice of termination of our contract with a 30-day notice from Sniff and Spellman. And I think it's pretty rough when you get essentially fired by your law firm. And but going forward, I am going to be positive about it, and I'm excited and hopeful that in this whole process we will get to see some who possibly did author the resolution.
Any further discussion? Any make a motion?
And I will be supporting it tonight, and that's only because Sniff and Spellman terminated their contract with us, and we really don't have any other choice but to go forward and look for somebody else.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Houston and a second by Mr. Basquin. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, budget workshop.
Well, before we get there, I do have 2 quick walk-on items, please. We sent these out earlier, maybe yesterday, I believe, and I apologize for the late and for the walk-on items. Mr. Adams is trying to get schools cabled with adequate cabling to be able to handle the internet connectivity that the devices that we use today for everything from testing to the connectivity that is educationally needed. And we need to get these done. We're afraid that if we don't, they're already budgeted, the funding is already there. But if we don't go ahead and get these POs cut, we may be well into the school year getting them done as opposed to securing the work during the summertime. So I apologize for that, but we have 2 different ones, and I recommend your approval of both of those to allow Mr. Adams to move forward with the cabling connectivity issues at the schools as presented.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bessler and a second by Mr. Sammerdike. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I have an embarrassing confession, and that is when I saw this as the walk-on and I saw access points, I'm like, why is Mr. Adams doing this? I thought access points was for ESE. So now thank you for the clarification, and I just needed to confess that. And let's just move forward.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Those 2 walk-ons are approved.
Yep, thank you very much.
Now, let's move on to the workshop.
And so that was the piece we actually had flip-flopped that, and so for the budget workshop, we had asked Ms. Cox to present that, so that was taken care of already.
And if there was some.
There was not, no, that's it, thank you. And so the only other thing is that we will have an executive session immediately following the board. And we have just a few folks that are gonna stay for that, and then we'll take care of some business there. Shouldn't take us very long.
I was trying to remember the FT we have each counselor, but we give each kid.
Okay, we can get that, and you'll be getting that, Ms. Cox can answer that and give you the exact number, and you'll be getting that presentation probably tomorrow. Sorry, okay, you already have the presentation, but Ms. Cox can give you that number in just a few minutes.
Awesome. All right, do you have any further word of business, Superintendent?
That is all for me for now, thank you.
Okay. I don't have anything tonight. Reverend Brown?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Bassman?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Sanderdine?
Oh, just something quick here. I know Irwin and San Juanita are here tonight. I had gone to one of the lunch facilities for our summer feeding program, and there was some concerns expressed by the school. And then I met with San Juanita and Ms. Cox had a meeting so we could discuss this more. What I need to do, as long as they're here, maybe we could clarify the process for students to come in and eat. I think the satellite sites like in Montura and Pioneer and so forth are going very well. It's just the two school sites, because we sort of have issues with adults have to come in. If the students are gonna eat, they sort of have to, right now they have to sit there. It'd be very nice if I thought we could just hand them the lunches in a bag, like when you drive through McDonald's. Here it is, thank you, have a great day, and you can smile and move on. But right now, we can't do that. So we're sort of bogged down by this conflict that we have with the state and so forth. So I was wondering, as long as they're here, maybe they could address that and how that is going to be smoothed out for the next few weeks.
I'm at the tail end of the approval process for what they call the rural non-congregate meal service, which will allow for parents to come to bring their children to pick up the meals and go. As long as we can verify that the child, that they don't go to another school to pick up a second meal, we're good. And being that we only have one open school site in LaBelle and then one in Clewiston, that should eliminate that problem right there. And we will have rosters on hand as well, so we can look up the children that are enrolled in the schools. Once we get that, we're good. For now, it's the school is kind of giving a little bit of pushback as to that they have to scan the IDs, the parents' IDs, and then one of their staff has to walk the children and them over to the cafeteria. And that is where there's been some conflict in that. Today, after we spoke with you, Mr. Semmerdike, we believe we've settled that with Up the Grove, where they will leave the gate open, and that leads directly to the cafeteria, so that parents with the children can come right in and go right in and eat, sit down and eat. To my knowledge, no one's going to be kind of watching that. I'll be opening the gate and closing it at the times, the meal service times. But at the front office, I was told that they will be gone as of Thursday of this week. This is their last week. So after this week, there's a big issue with that. I may have the approval tomorrow. I may have it in next week or in 2 weeks. We have to ride the mercy of the state. But that's we've just kind of been getting pushback from the schools. West Side has created a plan. They put tables in the foyer kind of area there, so they're good. It was just Up the Grove that we were having a little bit of issues with, but we believe we resolved that going forward.
I do have some concerns, Juanita, with that gate being open because we have VPK on campus.
Right.
We're still technically in session. Is there any way Up the Grove could have meals brought to the front office and they could distribute? Well, they have to eat them on site. We don't really have
We worked, we believe we have a good resolution today. It's only one VPK class, and so through Mr. Talata and the food services being able to juggle, you know, when they come in, when they leave, and then being able to make sure the babies are safe in a different spot than where the
Well,
people
that
come
I
in,
understand.
so.
My concern would be, could somebody slip through that gate when it's open? I'm being totally probably out in
Yeah.
left field, but that's just a paranoid. I mean, I watched a whole group of is it a daycare or a summer camp program?
It's a camp.
Go in
They
there.
came, and you know, who's to say John Doe doesn't slip in with them?
Right.
That's my paranoia as a former teacher. Hopefully this will be resolved.
Correct. I would say I pray for that waiver to come in. But like I said, we're at the mercy of the state. I've submitted all the paperwork. They asked for a little bit more. I did that and.
What's the window? How long is that gate open? I know this is public
It's an hour for breakfast and then an hour for lunch.
And there's no one within any staffing that can assist monitoring that?
Apparently not.
Mr. Clay?
Well, he's in training, so it will be left up, you know, between the school.
You have any suggestions?
Yeah. Between the school and what Sodexo's going to do, they've got some folks that they're hoping to get a hold of and get some folks in place. And so it's just going to have to
Hopefully
work
you'll
that way.
get your approval tomorrow.
That's why we work really hard to try to put these
Yeah.
summer feedings where there's no children on
Right,
staff
right.
on campus, and this is the
Well,
exact reason why. And the school's doing exactly what they've been trained to do,
Right.
which is push back. If I got people on this campus, you know, we're not just going to come walking through here. And so we believe we've got them separated enough now, and it only being one class, that we've got them contained in an area and in a spot that's best for them and very safe with regard a completely different direction in the area from where the feeding's
Something
happening.
maybe we need to think about for next year, just in case there's a plan in place.
And if I may, a concern from my side was the fact that when there was nobody on campus to put my team, you know, making them responsible for the security of it, and not that we don't want to do it. You know, we're trained in food service. We're not trained in security. We're not trained in child care, basically. But our forte is food service, and so it frightened me to have, you know, those little ladies be responsible for, you know, somebody that's, you know, fat like myself. You know, that's going to take more than, you know, a couple of ladies to stop, you know, a fat guy like me. But you know, I just want to make sure that you know, that responsibility and that liability wasn't going to fall on those ladies. So that was, you know, something that was my concern. And I think that overall, you know, something that we need to consider going into next year is that we need to start this whole process out and you know, putting everybody on the same page, so you know that we're saying from the same hymn. So it's we're all together.
Good.
Go ahead.
Yes.
So a couple of questions here. One is, I hear what you're saying about like your food service people aren't supposed to be your screeners and security. Do you feel like there is a need from like partnership with the district to provide that person to screen?
Well, this may sound sarcastic, but it is your building, you know.
Yes, I get it.
And again, not to push that, you know, it's your building, but you know, if we want to feed kids, but we want to make sure those kids are safe while they're getting fed.
Okay, understood.
And so, you know, again, I got lunch ladies, I got me, I got Salmonita, and you know, we're not, security is not our thing, you know, and not that we don't want to, but it's just that, you know, that's where we fall short. You know, we can feed as many kids that come through, but we gotta be able to feed them in a safe environment.
And again, we think we have a very solid plan now, since we learned of all this today, that where we've got students located, where we've got, you know, the ability to bring people in, we're in a situation where we don't have to raptor them with the situation that we've got set up and where it's going to go. So we think that it'll be much smoother. Matter of fact, it probably was, because you did all the changes today. So it should have been smoother today, even without putting the strain on the local school, and still keep people safe.
About how many bodies are you having go through there?
We have, as of yesterday and today, the Grove had 51 outside in just 2 days. Last Thursday, when we originally began, there was 10. West Side has had less than that.
So the true number is like families that need meals. very few to none. So we just don't get a lot of participation there. What they have happened there is there's a couple other local camps that have figured out, we got students here, wait a minute, we can get free food there, and so they're bringing them there. It's still students, are still, it's not a problem with that, but it's not families that need meals coming in, it's other camps that have figured out the system to come get the meals taken care of for them.
So how many, Madam Chair?
And this is just day 3 of service.
Just a couple of things. You're saying, well, maybe next year. I've been walking about this for 2 years now, and you're saying, well, next year we're gonna have to work on this a little more. I thought you had plenty of time to figure out these things when you had meetings in February, and then you had meetings in March, and now you're saying, well, it's still a little confusing here. That concerns me. What I would like to ask is, how about our satellite sites like Harlem? How many kids are eating in Harlem? Don't you have a site there?
Oh, they had a little crew out there.
Absolutely.
At the Harlem.
The rec center.
Rec center. And
Yes.
And at the pool. Just off the top of my head, I don't have that information with me. I think,
Harlem Rec Center has had 160 since Thursday and Friday of last week. And this week they've had about 160 so far as well.
So those segments of the program, I'm guessing it's doing pretty good in Montura too.
No, Montura hasn't started up yet.
Because,
The rec center starts up this next week.
oh,
Yeah, they haven't started.
okay. But our satellites seem to be doing better than our schools. What do you attribute that to when you have 10 times as many students coming to a satellite center than coming to our school?
What do we attribute that to?
Yes.
Well, if you're asking me my honest opinion, sir, it's that there is not, when you say that we've had time to plan all of this, you're talking about food services had time to plan this?
Food service in the schools have not been meeting and trying to coordinate all this for 2 years? Yes? No, I don't know. That's my understanding, that you have been meeting and going to principal meetings and to work this out.
We have, and every meeting we've gone to, the principals have not had questions, they've not had concerns, but yet when the program actually starts, then we have pushback, then we have concerns and questions, and everybody just kind of goes crazy, and they want to throw it on food service. And we don't feel that's fair, if you want my honest opinion, sir.
No, I asked your opinion. No, so it's our administrators that are the problem, is that what you're saying?
So again, what happened is administrators did what they were trained to do. We did our best to keep food services from doing summer programs where students are being housed. And it wound up at Upper Grove where we had one VPK class. And so there's students on campus. Our administrators and the people that run that school are trained. You're not coming on this campus until we raptor you and we know who you are and you're cleared to come on campus. That was not the model that we had set up with food service, and so it was just a conundrum. It happened 1 or 2 or 3 days. We corrected it today. The issue it is resolved. It was resolved the day it's taken care of.
Great. So I got one more quick thing. WAFC, the local radio station, I had suggested to them. And I didn't know if it's local and the kids in Harlem and different places, they can walk to it. I think that that's the real reason that it's located in a location where everybody's familiar with it and it's easy access. But a lot of people still don't know it. I know you sent out the flyers and stuff like that, and probably went in the backpack with everything else, and they went and the kids threw it on a desk not to be opened until August sometime. But WAFC has public community services all the time on the radio. And I had mentioned that the last time you were here. Could you contact them, explain the food situations at the different sites and the 2 schools, when it's available? Is that in your realm or is that not in your realm?
It's in our realm, sir, but we needed to work out, make sure that everything was ironed out first, because as we know, the first week is where all the issues come out. So we want to make sure, because we've had time changes to most all the sites. So we need to have that ironed out first before we go on the radio station and give all this information, and then people will say, hey, you didn't give out the right times. So we wanna, that is on to reach out and put an ad on the radio station.
So when will that happen? When can we expect that then? School
Within the
started?
next week or two, I'll reach out to them.
2 weeks?
The next week or two.
Why would you even wait 2 weeks?
As I said, that we're working out all the kinks in the first week so that we can make sure we get the right information out to the public. We advertise heavily on social media as well too. The Calusa Bell only runs once a month.
Once a month.
Right. Over here it runs more weekly, and we have that going as well.
Well, I would like to see more kids eating. I mean, that's the thing that I've talked to. But sometimes I still think we're hitting a conundrum, as our superintendent called it. But because of our conundrum, a lot of kids aren't having the opportunity to eat.
Well, I don't know that that's our fault or food services fault. I mean, they know. They even, the last day of school, the staff gave every child.
That's right.
You know, take this home, you know, and it was emailed. So there was an enormous push out, you know, informational wise. Why they don't come, I don't know that they have the answer or we have the answer. My opinion is that if very few people are going to want to come eat a school lunch during the summertime unless you're just really hungry and needing something to eat, or the kids just, you know, for some reason want to be there. No offense, I eat their food and I like it, but you know,
we're not offending,
but we've been there, right? And so those people at those camps, like at the Harlem, you know, area there, I believe that's a whole summer program that the kids are there, and it's a captive audience. And so it's hard to compare that to what happens at a school site. So I don't think that, you know, for no other reason, I don't think it's lack of effort, it's lack of advertisement, it's lack of anything. The situation that had been going on, you know, with the rap ring, that was a minor situation. It kept no one from going in and getting food. So, you know, again, I just don't think that people want to come to the school to eat lunch during the summertime. You know, it's there, they're available, they know.
Especially if they have to walk in.
Well, maybe.
I mean,
you know,
if we can do it the way somebody has suggested, and the state okays that, it might increase it too, because.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we can see for that. How long is the summer feeding program?
So July 21st.
You mentioned,
Thank you.
it was mentioned about camps taking advantage of that situation. So I think that's a great idea, honestly.
Yeah, we didn't have a problem with our students.
Have we reached out to facilities that are actually having summer camps? Like the city of Clewiston, to say, hey, we know typically they have a big summer camp every year. They're opening the pool again. Could we make that a feeding site instead of one of our schools? Then we don't have to open our school, and we could work that out with them.
Right.
Would that be a possibility?
We had more sites, of course, pre-COVID. And since COVID, our sites, outside sites, as we call them, have knocked way down. And they're just slow to come back to us, you know, but I've reached out to so many locations, you know, even the ones we had before. Hey, don't you want to have summer feed again? You know, and
You said get in touch with Lisa Sands.
I did, I sent her the flyer.
And that'll be a good reason.
And she's gonna spread the word as well too, to families she knows.
I know I've shared it with the Lavelle Chamber, I don't know about Clewiston Chamber.
I can do that.
Or would you?
I will.
Okay.
Madam Chair, something that it just hearing the challenge here, it kind of correlates to a situation we had several years ago before VPK, basically before the district like cornered the market on VPK. And one of the things we found through the Education Task Force was when we were meeting, one of the first questions is what percentage of our kids are attending VPK prior to coming to kindergarten? And the numbers were shockingly low. And so we tried to figure out a way to communicate that these opportunities were available, like how to link these parents up with resources. And one of the things that we did was we thought about like who our market was and where are we going to find these kids. Because like one of the things, I'm going to tell you, my kid, if he brought home a flyer, like I thought it was awesome to do that. Like you guys went above and beyond, like you really made that effort. But like, I think like all of us at the end of the year, we're all like dragging a leg, we're tired, we're just like, we're checked out, and that gets overlooked. But there were two things that we did that we could, because we did things incrementally, we didn't like throw the book at it, is we made a pretty small investment in like the yard signs, like campaign size yard signs. And like now you can get those customized in like small batches. You don't have to buy them by the hundreds and they don't have to be uniform, but saying, you know, like in the Harlem community, this is where you can go to find us, or in this community, this is where you go to find that. I know that we can get some people together to help if that's something you were interested in. And another place we put out information that we saw a huge uptick in people interested were laundromats. And that came about, you know, that idea came about when, you know, kid had a stomach flu and you're washing all the comforters and you realized how many small children were there, at women and children. And so, you know, those may be areas that in doctors' offices and you know, you think about where the kids are going to be and where the decision makers in their lives, the grown-ups, are going to be. And so those were some areas that we saw big return on investments. And we went from a county that had just abysmal VPK participation to just running hard. Like look like where we started and like where we are now with VPK through the district. It is just, and they were, it's just out of sight, out of mind, but if it's there, those visual reminders. I mean, if you see my house, I got sticky notes everywhere because I need the visual reminders, and it's just that.
The migrant program has, the migrant department has a bus, a reading bus that they've started.
Okay.
And we are hopefully going to tag along with them to kind of hit mobile sites once this, the rural non-congregate waiver gets approved. That would be great. We could, as they're getting books, they could get a meal too, you know, so it's a win-win. And in the next year, because it does take a long time to get approval and get it all going, I would like to purchase a bus through the summer feed funds that we have and redo the whole bus inside where the children can either come on board and eat, you know, on the bus, or we can just hand meals out from the window. Instead of a standard bus where we'd have to load everything and deal with the seats and all that, we can have the bus redone completely. And the state pushes hard on that, so I'm hoping to do that. I told her I've been wanting to do that, and I think I'm really going to push on that this next year.
And if I can, you know, I would be glad to link you up with WAFC. I'm sure they would love to have you guys on in the morning to talk about your program, and I know you would, and I know you would.
I'm sitting here and I'm about to bust because I am probably the only person in my unique position because I work for you guys. You know, I'm part of the community, but I'm not a part of the community. And just to kind of piggyback on what Salmonica said, you know, I don't want to say this and make it sound like I'm putting somebody on the spot, but who knows where the kids are more than our bus drivers?
Yes.
And that just, you know, that's the kind of support, just to throw it out there. That's what we need. If kids can't come to the meal, then I think we need to find a way to get the meals to the kids. If we are truly in the business of wanting to feed kids, then we got to find a way to eliminate the barriers that's preventing us from doing that. Because, like I said, you know, this is what I do. I said it a million times. This is what God put me on this planet to do, to feed kids. I've done it in South Carolina, in North Carolina, in Virginia, in Louisiana, in Florida. Yeah, this is what I do. I've been doing it for 20 years. You know, and you know, and I'm not. This is not about, you know, Sodexo trying to, you know, make more money for Sodexo's got billions of dollars. You know, but there's kids out here that need meals, and I need help to get meals for those kids.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Can I add to one important point? the day before school got out, we had the horrific storm that came through and ripped the roof off the nursing home. And Mr. Clay was working some emergency command with, in conjunction with Mr. Pastulo from the county. And they reached out and said, is there any way this food service can get 700 meals? Was that? 170, I'm sorry. It seemed like 700 at the time. And so, and it was crowded and dark when that happened. I called Irwin and I said, hey, where are you? He says, I'm just got home in Cape Coral. And I said, all righty then. When I laid out to him what had happened and what the request was, he says, I'm getting back in the car heading to Clewiston. I said, no, we can handle it. Just let your staff know. So the staff at Clewiston High School cafeteria was there before I got to the school. They were already making the meals. Didn't seem like long at all. Irwin, San Juanita, and San Juanita's little niece showed up. And they finished out making the meals, fruit, and just put everything together in nice packages, and without a second, without a moment's thought. And so, definitely a part of the community. Definitely made a big difference. There was folks there that got to eat. Staff, that there was a bunch of firefighters and law enforcement officers that hadn't had anything to eat because they couldn't leave the scene from early in the day, and so they were all very grateful. And so, our partners in Sodexo, stepped up once again, to help the community, and I just wanted to let them know, rub some love on them, let them know we're grateful for that.
And if I can piggyback off what Mr. Swindle said, it was, so in that, those patients that were triaged to the John Boy, they had meals that were provided by the nursing home, and they were not happy campers about the meals that they got. And then they found out about the Sodexo sandwiches. And so there were tons of personal requests for that. I was like, of course. And they were so happy. Like that was a traumatic time for them. And they had those warm sandwiches, and they were absolutely throwing shade at the nursing home dietary, but they were loving Sodexo. And so that was just super cute.
We fed them. We didn't do so to bill you for it, Mr. Swindle. The right thing to do was feed people that were in need, and we did that. We didn't, hey, you should give me $5 before I give you this meal.
Yeah.
We fed people that need it. That's right.
Irwin, I remember you guys showing up, and I know you got in trouble for it. In Montura, I know you got chewed for it, after Hurricane Irma, and Montura had gone without some relief. And I made Irwin, you got to help us out here. And they showed up with that, no hesitation whatsoever, and they came strong. And you guys did that for the nursing home too. That was awesome.
That's what being a part of the community is all about.
We know that the recreation department in Harlem is being real good. What about the youth center up in Clewiston?
Yes, they're doing great as well. Yes, they have a camp there. The Clewiston Youth Center. Mm-hmm. They have a camp there, and they have approximately 30 campers a day. Yep, so we've fed them 120 meals. Yep, last week, so 240 since we started last Thursday.
I rode by there and saw you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We got them out of it. Yep, they always come to us. On the LaBelle side, we couldn't secure Christ Central, the church, because they had something else they were going to do over the summer. So we did lose a site. But we picked up a church in LaBelle. They're only running a week though. But I still try to reach out to locations,
Hopefully by next year, we have a difficulty with our AC at Mount Calvary. We're going to be there, but we're going to get back before next year.
Good. Good to hear.
So maybe in the end of July, you will come back and tell us how many kids you were able to feed this summer.
Absolutely.
I mean, I like your effort, I like your attitude. I think you're right. My whole goal is just to feed the kids, you know that.
Absolutely.
I think we agree on that point. We just seem to have some hiccups here along the way, but you know what's expected, you know what you feel is right, and I agree with that. Maybe we'll just see how it washes out. Thank you.
Ms. Cox? Yes, I would be remiss if I didn't say anything about this. I hope that through prior years, even the current year, summer Samurai, we're never gonna be perfect at this, right? It's a constant, continuous improvement, and I think if there's anything that Santa Juanita and Irwin have shown is that anytime a problem is given to them, they are Johnny on the spot to fix it. And today was a perfect example of that. It's a shame that, you know, we don't hear information from the schools, it's coming from Mr. Samurai, but regardless of who it comes from, they are there to fix the problem and find a solution. You will not find two people who are more passionate than feeding kids. So I applaud them for everything they've done. I mean, it's not an easy feat to, you know, there are a lot of hurdles in having these programs run at the school. So I just want to make mention that we know it's not perfect. We know there's always work to be done, and you know they're not afraid of that. They do their jobs, and we're ready to make it even better in the future.
Thank you.
Well, that closes for me.
You're good? Okay. Ms. Lisa?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. So, piggybacking off what Mr. Swindle said earlier about Sodexo stepping up during that crisis with the nursing home, I also wanted to share some observations regarding our Hendry County School District transportation. And it was a situation and with these folks, how many, there was like 116 evacuated? It was, well, I mean, like a large number of people, and the vulnerabilities were from dementia to mobility, where they were bedridden. And it was so heartwarming to see our transportation department, like, oh, it gives me chills. My allergies might flare up. And I know that they're used to working with kids, but you know, we had like mechanics, like whoever could to get and drive these buses to transport. The compassion and the empathy that they had for these residents, and you know, working hand in hand with like the Monterey Fire Department, LaBelle Fire Department showed up without even being called. They like anticipated the need, but all of these people in the transportation department working together were so compassionate and empathetic with these very scared and displaced people. And it was, you know, you understand that, you know, like with the working with children, but like when you saw in that crisis, that crunch time, how awesome that these people were and how they adapted to the situation and just delivered a level of care. It was something that, you know, as a district, we could really, really be proud of. And so I just wanted to speak to that. It was like just, it was pretty amazing. So one of the things, okay, so I have a couple of notes here. I know that we used to get vacancy lists and I know that it's like ever changing, but before every board meeting, remember we had it was the spreadsheet that just gave us an idea of where our current vacancies were and what facilities they were at. And I was hoping and wondering if any other board members would be interested, because I know that the template's there.
I thought you're not getting it online. I thought you got access to that online. Did you not? Okay, all right, I'll make sure you get it. That's fine.
Okay, that's awesome, thank you. And then the FAST results, which are like the new FSAs, they're supposed to be back in real time. And I'm getting excited because you see, you know, like on social media, you'll see these are the kids who got 4s or 5s or whatever. And then, so I'm like wanting to see the overall, like how, I mean, I know that DOE probably has to go and certify stuff, but like our preliminary where we think we've.
So yeah, we do get those back in real time. We're hesitant to give those out because there is a true up in that. And so when you look at it, you could take false readings from it if you don't understand the caveats to that. And so we did not want to give those out. We expect to get that true up very shortly from the state. And then really that's the one we celebrate, whether it's lower or higher or whatever it is. We don't want to be misleading with that.
Okay, that's totally understood because I knew that, you know, that DOE, you do want them to certify that first.
Right.
And so I was hoping that we could get a presentation when those.
We absolutely sure. And the early indicators is going to be a celebration presentation, by the way, just so you'll know. So it's looking good for that.
That's the dream.
Right.
That's what we want.
Can I back up one on the vacancy list though, because that's sort of the same way. So when you see the vacancy list, like here, a good example is that it's going to show today that we're missing 55 instructional personnel. But again, it's just like the other question that you asked. Principals are hiring people every day, but it takes 1 to 2 weeks before that person is onboarded and then fingerprinted and actually hired, and then that goes away. So that true number really today is not even nowhere near 55. So it is what it is. I certainly don't mind you seeing it, but please don't look at that and go, oh my God, we're down 55 people, because the true number is nowhere near that. And that'll still change. I mean, we still have the rest of June and July. People can still come, people can still go, but just try not to get caught up on the fact that we're missing this giant number, because it's not really truly indicative of where we are.
What do we think about, I appreciate that. What do we think about, I know that housing has always been a historical challenge. Have we, I felt like even more so just because of the inventory, like on the Clewiston side, do we have a plan, like I know in like years past, just because, I felt like the neighborhood captain and team patrol would go around and reach out to people that I knew had rentals and try to like line up a list of this is what's available to give to our administration. Are we like doing a district effort like that, or is that something I can assist with?
So the principals are master real estate people as well, and they probably have a better grip on what's available and what teachers are leaving that apartment and this one's available and stuff like that. So they just do a phenomenal job of making sure they know if they're going to hire someone, they've got to make sure they've got somewhere for them to stay, or at least help them point them in the right direction. Housing is a no-win situation for us. For North, even before I became in this seat, we've been working on what housing models and options would look like. The true answer is there's no good solution for us as a board to get involved in that. I would love to do it only because we know that it's needed, but every scenario that we've gone down now for north of 3 years, there's always a catch, a caveat, a reason we cannot, a reason we should not. Earlier this year, we were moving forward with doing 7 park models and being able to be so grateful to do that. So we took care of 7 employees at that point. What about 8 through the other 35 that we're going to hire? What about the 20 we hired last year that we didn't do anything for? And meanwhile, we've had $1 million a year up on, and 7 people to have somewhere to live. So we just can't come up with a good model for the district. I'm not stopping, I'm not giving up on it, I'm not throwing my hands up. We're continuing to look for partners, private investors, other ways to do it, to make it happen, but I just can't come up today with a good solution where I can come to you with a clear conscience and say, let's take millions of yours dollars that you just seen up there and let's take care of these 7 people or 10 people or whatever that number is on one side of the district or the other. Your other question about inventory, again, I go back to the principals are just absolute masters at that. And so they do wonderful at connecting those folks where they need to be.
One of the things, I took a run at it with the previous administration and it didn't pan out. We may have talked about it a long time ago, but like for our people who are landlords locally, one of the things I thought, how do you, because, and I think we're going to have a better options because the work on the levee has completed and a lot of those contractors have left and they were in a lot of those rental properties. But if you have, let's say, a landlord, how do you incentivize them to rent to your people as opposed to somebody else? And like one of the things I thought, and I don't know if it's legal, but yeah, Molly, chime in here. If like foregoing taxes on properties, if they agree to keep it up to a certain standard and to rent to Hendry County employees. I mean, because yeah, you're going to lose the property taxes on a handful of properties, but then you're going to have that property available for your teachers. So I don't know if that's out of the box, but you just want, it's so crucial because I know, being married to somebody who was a principal at one time, sometimes he would just be like, if you were my kid, I couldn't let you live here. If you were my single daughter, that's not going to happen. But if you can find like these quality properties, and it would probably, I don't know if it would even be legal to do that, but if you got with the municipalities and the county commission and said, hey, would you be willing to forego that to be able to recruit quality and give them a solid place to live? That might be something we can look at. It definitely wouldn't be like $1 million hit.
I don't recall us having that conversation, but I'm certainly willing to look into it.
We may not have. But I know that it happened before and it just didn't get a lot of traction. But maybe that's something you could, fill out like the county administrator and say, how would you feel about lose, and because, one of the things is their taxes are usually pretty high because they don't have the homestead exemption on it. And so, that would be a great incentive, they can reinvest that into the properties looking nice and, or, whatever they want to do, but to provide those housing opportunities. I got to attend the negotiation meetings this past week, and it's awesome actually to be in the room and not be allowed to talk and just have to listen. And so one of the things that I heard was like a concern about like some of the administration, like when you get hired, the job description says you have to have like your ed leadership degree, but it also has that caveat that was put in place with the intent that, the caveat that says, or other qualifying or qualifications is deemed necessary by the board. And one of the things I was thinking about, because I was listening to that conversation, and they were talking about people who, like in administration, who have been there for a significant amount of time, and ensuring that they are going forward. You don't want, when we've paid all this money to send people to school for ed leadership degrees, and so they've got these people, ed leadership, the Feelies, all the certifications they have to go, and they're not getting the opportunity because you have administration sitting in seats where they either haven't passed whatever certifications or they haven't started working on meeting that educational requirement. And I would, like to propose a policy that that requires all administration appointments that are recommended based on that other qualifications as deemed necessary, that policy to require them to begin their course of study or within that same academic year that whatever their latest reappointment is. So if they got reappointed tonight and they didn't have the academic, their educational criteria, it would require them to start it within this academic year. Or if they...
We're doing that short of the policy now.
Okay.
It hasn't been done in the past, but they all have to put on notice that if they don't have it, they have to show us academic progress towards this school year.
And then if they have, some people probably have the degree but haven't passed whatever testing and certifications to wrap it up and to require, put a timeline on that. And so the way...
effort towards that. So we have some that struggle with it, and that's not easy, right? And so we understand that. And so did you not take it in 5 years, or have you taken it and you're still struggling, you're making progress toward that? There's a difference. And so we're working with them to make sure that they're working toward that, if you will. We're doing that as we speak. That is happening.
But, you think of, when you think of an organization like this, so you're on top of it, but times are fleeting. You get hit by a bus, administrations change, things like that happen, and you want to have policies in place that create that, if it's what the board sees as appropriate, creates those parameters and guidelines of, it gives the leeway, but it also says going forward, this is what we feel is important and it needs to happen through policy.
Okay, sure. And if that's the direction y'all want to go, I'm happy to do that. I just wanted to ensure you that it was happening. But if y'all want policy to back that up, then that may help us at times as well.
And so, and as such, I would like to make a motion tonight to ask our legal to wordsmith something to that effect of where we have a guideline on if you are appointed under that caveat, then you have a certain amount of time. And, that's not for me to decide. I think it would be a better recommendation for that timeline coming from administration to say, you got to make a move on your, take active steps to start that educational path forward, or a timeline on the completion of the certification.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'd like the superintendent to respond to that before I make this second. Is that a reasonable set of goals for our administrators who aren't certified yet?
Well, again,
I don't want to put somebody out of line and say, yeah, that seems like a great idea.
Well, so we're essentially doing it now. It wasn't done in the past. We had some deans that were deans for 20 years that never had that leadership and stuff, and we just don't feel that's right. And so we were taking a step short of the policy, without the policy, and we have put, you know, a good example is guidance counselors in guidance positions for several years that don't have a guidance certificate. And so we basically, Dr. Stanley has put them all on notice and said, this is the expectation, and we do expect to see your academic progress, you know, in that direction now, and give us your plan. Maybe a class, you know, at least you're taking a class, because some of them have kids and things like that. So we don't have to go take a full load and teach a full day either. But, you know, so it's doable. And again, you know, to your point, it may help us a little bit, you know, give us the teeth, so it's not just us being the mean old us doing it. And you can say, for our policy, we can hire you, but it's going to come with that caveat that you will continue your coursework over a set amount of time at a minimum of this in order to achieve this you know, position. So I don't have a problem with that.
So the motion tells you to set the policy. We're not writing the policy tonight. It gives you the opportunity to write the policy so it meets the needs of our district, but doesn't put people in a bind.
Right.
I would like the opportunity to do a little research too, because it sounds more, and Molly, correct me if I'm wrong, but more procedural than policy. So I would like to look at both and have Amy do some research with me.
Yeah, we can pull Neil, or perhaps Neil has
Yeah.
something or something that, you know, would help us as a guide there, so.
Because it would help, I just want to make sure we're putting it.
So do we want to table it and come back there? And that way you'll have time to research, you can have our attorney look at it, and then we'll come back. I think it's a good idea.
It's possible to have some, I mean, administrator look at it and bring some type of recommendation back. I don't want to do something
That
that
could be true.
gonna hurt.
Can we, if it's okay, can we move this from the old business then and give us time to look into it and find some, you know, some guidance, you know, what, you know, Neil has, other districts are doing and things like that.
What kind of financial strain would put on them as well? If you, like you're talking about, you had a single parent that was trying to go through this and it's going to cause them financial difficulties. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to put that strain on them either, so we definitely need to do our homework on that.
It could be a grandfather, this, you know, or something, but let's do some research.
We're already
I
doing
think
it.
You want your most highly qualified, certified leadership.
Yes, absolutely.
And then this kind of, you know, it gives you guys, like, you know, Superintendent Swindle said, some teeth to if you're having an issue there, you can be like, hey, you know, this is the policy, my hands are tied. And, you know, give you some help there. And then I want to revisit something I discussed before that I think would be beneficial to all of us as far as public notices go, and would be if we could get us, like, when you look at our homepage and it has, you know, school board and all the stuff and employment and everything, like, have a place, a designated place for public notices. And then that way because I know, like, sometimes they get lost in the bottom, and I just think it would be helpful, like when we have RFPs, like for legal, or when we had like the lawn stuff, or we have meetings that need to be publicly noticed. It's all in that one area, dedicated link, and it is, you know, it just adds to the transparency. And then, like, if you know that there's, and I think people will, like, contractors and people wanting to bid on projects will know that that's a place that you can go and you can find it, like, instantly. And you can put your, you know, with the website, the information that's involved in it. I just think that would equal the playing field, and for, you know, people not to have to rely on, like, word of mouth, and like, even like if you put them in newspapers, like, it's kind of become like an antiquated way of learning about those things.
Last legislative session, the state passed a law that allows us to do it all virtually and on the website, but it has to go through the county. So the county has to be the host of it. So we can have it on ours, but the official there, so that, like, for a good example, Bruce Bell is the only thing that serves once a month. That really doesn't work well for us being able to advertise the things that we need to advertise. So we're working with the county now, hopefully to work that out and get them to be the host and to get all the legal requirements met. The legal piece of it will be on their website, but then we will be able to have copies and access to certain things on ours as well.
Yeah, I just think that would be awesome if you had that dedicated link, so that anybody who was interested in doing business or you know, knowing what the public notices are, that would be that one place to go. And then that concludes my board member discussion.
Real quick before I adjourn, piggybacking off of your community service things, I think we need to give a shout out to Christine Peterson and her as well.
Yes, I forgot about them. They were
I saw
awesome.
on social media, I wasn't in town, but I saw on social media what a minute that they were to you guys over here, so.
You see them everywhere. It's like they're,
It's just wonderful. Of course, she's out of the country right now, so
Yeah.
if you're watching this,
Yeah.
but, okay.
Spot on that one. I mean, those kids were right there with like, these people were wet. I mean, they'd lost the roof and very vulnerable and fragile. And those kids were like pros, like they'd been doing it their whole life. So that is a real testament to, I mean, they were awesome. No denying it.